That one person who, right in the middle of being guilt-tripped, doesn't argue, doesn't explain, doesn't defend themselves. They just go quiet for a second, look at the other person, and ask one calm question, and you can feel the whole conversation flip. The pressure that was building just deflates. Not because they're cold, not because they don't care, but because they understand something about manipulation that most people never figure out. Manipulation doesn't run on logic. It runs on speed, and the moment you slow down, the whole machine starts falling apart. Now, if you've ever been pulled into explaining yourself, apologizing for things you didn't do, or saying yes just to make the tension in your chest stop, you're not weak. You're not gullible. You're not broken. Your brain was doing exactly what brains are designed to do under social pressure. Resolve the discomfort as fast as possible. Manipulators don't beat you with better arguments. They beat you with tempo. And here's the good news. Tempo is something you can take back. Today, we're breaking down the actual psychology of people who can't be manipulated, including the 3 quiet questions you can use to make manipulation collapse in real time. First up, let's get one thing straight. Manipulation is not some mysterious dark art. It's been mapped. In 1987, psychologist David Buss and his colleagues published a study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, identifying 6 core tactics people use to manipulate each other. Charm, the silent treatment, coercion, reason, regression, and debasement. 6. That's it. It's a playbook, and it's a surprisingly short one. But here's what all those tactics have in common. They don't work in clear air. They work in fog. A guilt trip falls apart the moment you define it precisely. Fake urgency dies the second you check the actual deadline. Manipulation needs 3 conditions to survive: confusion, emotion, and speed. Think of it like a casino. Casinos famously have no clocks and no windows because the longer you stay disoriented, the more decisions you make on autopilot. A manipulator builds that same room around you, just with words. No pose, no clarity, no time to think. Yeah, your only job is to put a clock back on the wall. Okay, so how do you do that? With the first question. What exactly do you mean by that? Sounds almost too simple, right? But look at what it does. Vague accusations are the manipulator's favorite currency, and you've heard them all. You've changed. After everything I've done for you, I guess I just don't matter. Researchers Anita Evangelisti and James Daly studied this in the early 90s and cataloged 12 distinct guilt moves people use in conversations. The most common ones? Reminding you of your obligations, listing their sacrifices, comparing you to someone else. Notice the pattern. None of these are specific requests you can actually respond to. They're emotional fog machines. When you calmly ask, what exactly do you mean by that, you're forcing the fog to take a shape. It's like flipping the lights on in a movie theater. The scary thing on the screen suddenly has to exist in a bright room, and most of the time, it just can't. Either they tell you what they actually want, which you can now evaluate like an adult, or they stumble because the whole move was never meant to be examined out loud. Here's where it gets interesting. The second question. Why didn't you just say that directly? This one targets passive aggression, the sighs, the sarcasm, no, it's fine, the compliments with a little blade hidden inside. You know the ones. Passive aggression works because it gives the speaker deniability. They get to hit you and keep their hands clean. If you react, you look dramatic. If you stay silent, you absorb the hit. But this question removes the deniability politely. You're not accusing them of anything. You're just asking why a direct thought took such an indirect route. And honestly, there's no comfortable answer to that question. And you both know it. Either they own what they meant, which turns it into an actual conversation, or they retreat. Wow, I was just joking. And now everyone in the room knows it wasn't a joke. Either way, you've made indirectness expensive. And people quietly stop using tools that cost more than they pay out. Now the third question. And this might be the most powerful one. Why is this suddenly urgent right now? Manufactured urgency is everywhere. I need an answer today. If you really cared, you'd decide right now. Everyone's waiting on you. And there's real science on why it works. In 2008, Researchers Michael Dodano and Heath Demery at Case Western Reserve University ran a study where people performed a decision-making task, and one group was simply told their time was insufficient. Same task, same actual time. The group that merely believed they were rushed performed significantly worse. Read that again. The perception of time pressure alone was enough to damage their decisions. Your brain under fake time pressure makes worse calls than your brain with room to breathe. That's the whole trick. It's the psychological version of that only two left in stock button. The scarcity is fake, but your racing heart is real. Look, real emergencies are rare, and people who genuinely love you almost never demand a major decision on a stopwatch. So when you ask, why is this urgent right now, you're pulling the conversation out of panic and back into logic. And you're watching whether that deadline survives contact with one calm question. Spoiler, it usually doesn't. But here's where it gets really wild. Sometimes you don't need a question at all. Sometimes the most devastating move you have is the pause. And I don't know about you, but nobody teaches us that one in school. Manipulation is a rhythm game. Push, react. Push, react. The manipulator needs you to move. They need you to explain, to panic, to concede. Your reaction is literally the fuel. So when you pause, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, just calmly looking at them, you're unplugging a speaker mid-screech. The feedback loop dies because you stopped feeding it. And psychology backs this up. Researchers Dominic Mishkowski, Ethan Cross, and Brad Bushman found that people who took a fly-on-the-wall perspective during a heated provocation, observing the moment from a distance instead of drowning inside it, had fewer aggressive thoughts, less anger, and less aggressive behavior in the heat of the moment. Psychologists call this self-distancing, and it's one of the most effective emotion regulation strategies ever tested. The calm person in the room isn't suppressing anything, and neither are you when you do this. You've just stepped back far enough to watch the play instead of getting dragged on stage. Now, before you start diagnosing everyone you know, here's the uncomfortable truth. Not every clumsy sentence is manipulation. People who love you will sometimes guilt you by accident. Anxious people create urgency with zero agenda behind it. The difference between a bad communication day and a manipulator isn't one sentence. It's the pattern. A pattern of fog. A pattern of pressure. A pattern of your clarity being treated like a threat. And one more thing. Staying calm doesn't mean you go numb. This isn't about suppressing your feelings or winning some psychological chess match. The question was never, how do I control them? The question is, how do I stop handing over control of me? So the next time someone wraps a demand in fog, drops a sarcastic little dagger, or slaps a countdown timer on your decision, slow down. Ask what exactly they mean. Ask why it couldn't be said directly. Ask why it's urgent right now. Or just pause and watch what the silence reveals. Because self-controlled people don't control others. They control themselves. And the moment you stop reacting on autopilot, you stop being a predictable target. And prediction is the only real power a manipulator ever had over you. If this video made you think differently about the pressure inside your conversations, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support these deep dives into the psychology you live every single day, hit that join button below.